Well, thanks, Glenn. I appreciate that intro. And I've lived longer in the neighborhood than I can remember too. uh, I want to bring up my slides and let's get started to this. I'm happy to be a part of this. I'm really enjoying it. Where are there two of them?
This one.
It's that one. Okay.
Ask if they can see it.
Can everybody see this? Am I on mute?
No, you're not on mute.
We can see it, Bill.
Oh, okay, great. Well, let's
Okay.
start off. Title page, yes, Life's the Beach. Okay. I have recently self-published a book, and I could write a book about it. It's a bit of a little minefield there. Certainly a learning experience, but I tried to tie it in. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but this is the cartoon that appeared in the Beach Metro News recently. And you're probably asking yourself, what is the book about? It's essentially an anthology of my cartoons and stories from over 40 plus years of working with the Beach Metro News. And it's something that's been on the back burner for years. I've been wanting to do it. I've just been super busy trying to make a living as a freelancer and teaching at Seneca with Glenn, of course. I never seem to have time for it. Now that I'm recently retired, I have that time. I've also included a few humor stories. I wrote after a writer buddy told me that, Bill, writers make way more money than cartoonists. And yeah, right. Well, maybe this writer, bottom right. Now, the reason I've included a picture of Stephen King here is for this reason. People keep coming up to me in parking lots and resorts and asking me if I'm Stephen King. I don't know. You be the judge. And I just told you I retired last year from teaching and coordinating in the Art Fundamentals program at Seneca College. I figured it was time to do the book. And I've tied it in with the paper's 50th birthday. And I found that I really needed a project to bridge the gap between, going full out and going nuts and stopping cold. But it was a lot of work, and it's still kind of weird being retired after a year and a bit. So what is it about? That's the question. It's about our East End beach neighborhood, but not only that. It's very Canadian. It's about Toronto, Canada too, obviously. Mostly my observations about events and people in our neighborhood, mostly from a man in the street point of view. And you'll see that my style, if anybody here is familiar with Giles or Giles, I'm trying to think of another Canadian cartoonist that will come to me. Oh, Sid Barron. If you know Sid Barron's work, you know that both he and Giles used to put all kinds of little sight gags and jokes all over the cartoons, and I really enjoyed that. Now, sometimes I go a little bit further afield from the beach neighborhood, and I'll get involved in politics, although I'm very apolitical, which means I can take shots at any politician that I want to if I feel they need to be criticized or their asses kicked a little bit. I try to be extremely truthful, but sometimes I just will go for a little rant. Occasionally, I'll just create a gag just for the sake of making people smile. And that character on the right, I also like creating all kinds of characters. The character on the right here is Spike the volleyball dog. Of course, people from the beach love their dogs. I don't have a dog. I was considering getting one, but most of them don't play volleyball. Speaking of the dog, there is windsurfing. So my major objectives for this book, make the book to commemorate my 40 plus years with the paper, also celebrate the Beach Metro News and their 50th year milestone, support the Beach Metro News. And strangely enough, I only learned recently that they're having a little trouble financially. They're a bit stretched. The price of things have gone up, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to give you a little spiel on perhaps considering supporting the Beach Metro News. Number 4, I also want to support local businesses, and the book has been doing quite well at various stores in the Beaches area, Queen Street and Kingston Road. I'll talk a little bit more about where to get the book later on. And I also wanted to get, a few of my students involved. These are not my students. What's going on here? I touched the wrong thing. Get a couple of my students involved. These are not my students. My students are generally younger than this. This was a cartoon. I decided to sort of mirror Grant Wood's painting, American Gothic. So we called it Beach Gothic. And that, I'm not sure if that thing is being, if the seagull up there is being blocked at all. No? Oh, shit. Geez, this thing's sensitive. It's very sensitive. I just wave my hand over it and it moves. All right. So there we go. The seagull. He's also one of my characters. Now, there's a story behind that. The paper actually held a contest years ago to name the characters. And I think they came up with Flap and damned if I can remember, because I didn't like the names. So I stick with my own names. I call this guy Zeke. Paper won't like that, but they won't remember anyway. This is not working.
Oh, we've lost our cursor. There it is.
There's the cursor.
Down here on the right. Let's see. Click.
Glad I got my techie here. As you know, most of you know the history, I think, of the paper. It started in 1972 as a protest paper in opposition to the Scarborough Expressway. It turns out my house here on Highcroft was practically right in the way of the expressway. I'm glad the paper actually stopped it. I didn't live here at the time. I lived a little bit further east on Malvern. But you can see all the various logos, mastheads for the paper. And there, that's better. I was involved in all but one of them. And in fact, my wife Debbie helped design at least the bottom 3. And, okay. Help me. Why won't it? A second ago, it would switch, by just breathing on it. Okay, this is the more recent iteration of the logo. And it's different. Look, I just touched it again. Oh, gosh, okay. So we know, I probably don't need to go over this with you, but it reports on and supports local sports, festivals, events, businesses, the arts, causes, area history, churches, clubs, etc., community centers, and much more. You can see there's Hamper, who I helped design. I'll talk a little bit more about that, and Bob Murdoch. There's my sax playing jazz gull on the right, and a couple of little hockey players. You'll notice that one of them is sporting the Ted Reeve Thunder logo. The other one's got the Toronto EastEnders, which my son actually coaches, one of the teams in their organization. And of course, it's a forum, the paper, of course, a forum for rational, balanced discussion on politics. This is an ad for the Beach Metro News, I'm sorry. And local issues of all stripes, from dog poop to oversized condo developments that a lot of people don't seem to want. Trusted source of community news, yeah. And it's nonprofit, delivered by volunteers. Now, as a spot illustration, I've added this character. His name is Aspen, and he's a real, well, he's a cartoon cat here, but he's based on a real cat. This cat lives up the street, but he comes and visits us virtually every day. Speak of the devil, look at him. Jeez. Visits every day. We try not to feed him. He's got so much character, it's unbelievable, so I have to put him in the cartoons. Got a good sense of humor, too. Now, this is the back of one of my many calendars that I used to produce and sell. It was a lot of fun. We'd produce calendars based on the cartoons that I picked. This was early on. The newspaper has since taken it over, but we would sell the calendars in local church bazaars and schools and so forth. It was a heck of a lot of fun, but I just happened to, I put as many crazy photographs as I could on the back as far as the bio. And in this one, I don't know, we were at some political event. I got up to close and personal with Mel last minute. And I don't know if you could, I can't read it through all the, don't worry about it. But this was at a time, I don't know if you remember the story, when various people were, that's a little better, not really. People were coming out of the woodwork claiming to be Mel's illegitimate children. So I wrote something on a I think it was a copy of the Beach Metro News and photobombed him. And of course I had to use it for my calendar. But that was fun. He didn't mind, he laughed about it. He could have sued me for everything I owned. This particular cartoon, it's obviously based on the ongoing controversy about whether we call the place the beach or the beaches. And this was a time when the city decided they were going to put up signs, all kinds of signage throughout the beaches, that said the beaches. Well, after this cartoon was published, a bunch of the signs were defaced and some of them were actually taken down. So I don't know if I'm responsible for encouraging this. I hope not. I apologize if I did, but you know, it's history now. I can't be charged in any way, I hope. This particular cartoon, it also got me into a little bit of trouble. It was one of my earlier cartoons, and it was black and white. It was since colored. I colored a few of them because some of the members of the Balmy Beach Club wanted to buy them, which was great. Helped pay my rent at the time. The controversy or the issue was that the rugby team was on a tournament, and I think it may have been as far away as Australia. I'm not absolutely sure where it was, but what happened was, as young guys do in their 20s, they got a little rowdy. So the airline essentially refused to fly them home. The issue was mitigated, but it gave me the idea, and it made all the big papers, not just the Beach Metro News. It gave me the idea of why not have the captain or a stewardess just throw a rugby ball out the rear doors. That might just mitigate the problem instantaneously. Of course, it's not going to happen, but I thought it was a pretty good idea. Some of the people at the club, I wasn't a member of the club at that point, but I eventually became a member. Some of the players weren't too keen on it. So I had to avoid like these 250-pound guys for a while. Now, sometimes, as I said, all I do is rant. Well, I'm not going to say all I do is rant, but occasionally I rant. All right. Sometimes if something bugs me, I will do a cartoon about it. And back then, this happened a lot. For whatever reason, it doesn't happen so much these days. I don't know why. Maybe the cartoon had some effect. But if you're drivers, you may have experienced this, where you're driving along Coxwell, Queen Street, or whatever, and a streetcar driver decides, well, I'll just stop here and go into a convenience store and grab a snack. Meanwhile, you're sitting there fuming. So I thought I'd simply reverse the roles. And this is something that cartoonists do all the time. They'll reverse roles with animals, people, et cetera, and it usually gets a laugh. A friend of mine is an ex-TTC subway and streetcar driver, and he, of course, wanted copies, and he distributed them to all his co-workers. And I wasn't charged with anything. This one, I wish I could remember the date of this, and I probably should have researched it, but some of you will remember when the city announced that uniformed what are they called? I cannot read that. Ah, shoot. Uniformed officers, I guess is a good word. So they were hired to ticket owners, pet owners who didn't or simply refused to pick up after their pets, and they were quickly given the name Brown Hornets. And I think they actually wore brown shirts. I don't know. But if you notice the acronym on the helmet, oh, that's better. Nice, nicely done.
They can't see it.
What do you mean they can't see it?
They don't see what you're seeing. Yeah.
The situation was this: there's all numerous vignettes of people which were blocking my notes, but my wife just fixed it for me. Nevertheless, take a look at the guy's helmet, the SQUAT team, of course, and the acronym stands for Strategic Quelling of Unauthorized Animal Toiletry. I just touched it. What the heck? Okay. Now, back in the day, once again, there may be a date on that thing. I can't see it, but the boardwalk was in a state of disrepair. And of course, the city of Toronto were going through cutbacks. And guess what? I've included an article by our very own Jean DeMagla, our very own official beach historian. And this presentation is going to be recorded. So if you want to come back and use that link to see Jean's article. But I thought it was appropriate in Toronto where the stress levels are high. And at the time too, power walking seemed to become a bit of a trend. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I immediately saw in my mind somebody just stomping away on the boardwalk and essentially rendering it into splinters because, hey, that's the way I run, actually. Speaking of politicians, okay, this was Justin shortly after he won based on his campaign platform that involved legalizing marijuana. So this happened to be a Halloween cartoon. So I had a couple of kids trick-or-treating at 24 Sussex Drive. And of course, they're asking, what the heck are edibles? You have to look closely at the candies to see what he's actually handing out. Now, this one is not so much, of course, it's a hockey cartoon. My son played minor hockey for years, and he's still coaching minor hockey, but it coincided with the unfortunate passing of my good friend, Jim Simpkins. If that name means anything to you, then you're familiar, obviously, with Jim Simpkins' most popular character, which is Jasper the Bear. So what I did as a cartoonist tends to commemorate the passing of a good friend. They put his character into the cartoon, and that's exactly what I did. Jasper is still around. Jasper is still the mascot for Jasper Park, National Park. And let's just go to the next one here. And there's a picture of Jim when he was a little bit younger. He was a very classy guy, always ready to help us young cartoonists. He's an East Ender. He lived in East York, just off Coxwell Avenue, not too far away at all. Jasper appeared in Maclean's magazine for over 20 years and was syndicated across Canada and parts of the United States as well. And there's a link there if you wish to have a look at what Jasper is doing these days, if and when you come back to the presentation that's been recorded. And this is a commentary of the aging infrastructure of Toronto, essentially. And I try to tie stuff in with dates such as Groundhog Day. And of course, this groundhog is, whoops, oh, Jesus. This is very sensitive. And when I'm working on my wife's computer, and when I'm working with mine, I practically have to hit it with a hammer. So you'll probably remember this winter. Over the past few years, broken water mains have been a real problem in Toronto. That's better. Now it's working. Great. This particular cartoon, I don't know if I should include this, but I did. This was something that happened maybe 15, 20 years ago, where the city of Toronto announced that they were going to count their homeless. So immediately, I didn't realize it at the time, but it's quite important. And I learned that recently in a book by Malcolm Gladwell about having a good idea of the homeless population. But what I saw immediately when they said they were going to count the homeless was a reference to Marlon Perkins and Stan Brock from Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, where they're darting the poor guy. Now, this was another somewhat controversial cartoon, and this was early on in my career anywhere. Jocko Thomas, some of you will remember his name. He was the police reporter for the Toronto Star and CFRB. He reported, I don't know how accurate it was, that prostitutes were moving into the beaches. So I never saw any evidence of this. So I made a joke about it. And basically, I'll read the caption. That's okay. Jocko, who would have known that in the beach, a hooker is a rugby position? And that's a rugby position, folks. Not sure what a hooker does, but I didn't play rugby. My son did. There we are. In the not too recent past, before obviously the Gardiner Expressway was torn down, you always had to be aware of what might drop on your car if you drove under it. And I've seen ice, I've seen the occasional rock fall from underneath it, and I've put a little inukshuk on this large piece of rock. Probably the worst thing that happened to my car, though, there are certain parts of if you're driving along the lakeshore under the Gardiner, the starlings used to nest under there big time. And if you had to stop at a light, you were going to get hit. And I think they were aiming for me. In fact, I know they were. Now, 2015, once again, not that long ago. Billy Bishop Airport. They were talking about expansion, more and bigger jets. There was a great battle. So what it made me think of, once again, combining things. That's what I like to do. And I think a lot of creative people, cartoonists, illustrators, you name it, writers, you put together different concepts. And in this case, it gave me the opportunity to actually draw an SE-5A, which is an aircraft that Billy Bishop actually flew in the last parts of World War One. And it was essentially Billy Bishop goes to war against Billy Bishop. So I basically had this, a certain type of, I'm not going to say curmudgeonly, but I just did, a guy hauling this old beaten up World War I aircraft out of his garage, and his wife essentially chastising him, telling him, no, you're not doing that. You're not putting a hole in their runway. Anyway, 2015, Federal Transport Minister Mark Garneau effectively squashed the thing, although Adam Vaughan basically said it was squashed long before that, but that was Adam Vaughan. Next. The coyote problem. This was a unique opportunity here to bring Warner Brothers into it. The headline was the city to bring experts in to deal with the coyote issue. And the best expert that I could think of was the Roadrunner. So it worked perfectly. And I love the look on these two guys' faces. I mean, these are two typical beach guys of a certain age, maybe a little younger than me and Glenn. But the book, I should mention, is a book of my favorite cartoons. This cartoon is in it. I've tried to include some of the cartoons that didn't make the cut as well, just so I could talk about them. And some of them, I think, were a little bit too controversial to go into the book. Another coyote cartoon. I thought, what if we captured him at the Easter parade and he was wearing a bunny suit? I love this cartoon. I don't know why. I've even got the little Toronto Animal Services tag on there. I don't know why, but here's another. This is not a coyote cartoon, but it is about the Easter parade, which I understand is happening this year, which is great. And you may recall this story. It's a little bit obscure, but if you remember Ed the Sock, he was chosen, I'm not sure who chose him, as the Grand Marshal for the Easter parade that year. And what year was that? 2007. He appeared on MTV. He had his own show, Ed's Night Party. He was voiced by a guy named Steven Gersner. And after the committee, and I assume the committee was part of obviously Beaches Lions put the parade on. People were wondering, why is this raunchy puppet the Grand Marshal of a kid's Easter parade? So he smokes, he drinks, hangs out with half-naked ladies in a hot tub on MTV. So I just had the Easter Bunny booting him right out of it. He was replaced by Lou Bogoy and Craig Lozon from the Royal Canadian Air Force, which were I think they're much more appropriate, I think, although I'm sure they had some jokes as well. Now, I've included a whole bunch of really great beach characters. These people, Bob Acton included, was a true beach character. This guy unfortunately contracted ALS, but he was such a mentor to so many kids, involved in baseball, hockey, lacrosse, a true mentor and friend to my son. And he tried to power through it, courageously continued to teach and mentor and instill values in kids. I'm getting a little choked up just talking about him, actually. But I made sure that I included him. Definitely. Terrific guy. And another fellow, Mark Daly, who was on the board of the paper, and he was a well-known journalist, the voice of city TV, another terrific guy, helped out the paper immensely. And I've got a little story about him. I'm not sure what event we were at. It may have been at a hot tub party. I don't know if you remember Hot Tub Larry Hayes. He's in here too. Something of the Balmy Beach Club, but nevertheless, we were walking along one of the roads that borders the lake, and a woman had stalled her car, and it happened to be a standard stick shift. So here we were trying to instruct her in how to pop the clutch as we, puffing like grampuses, were trying to push the car at just the right speed. And we tried this about 3 times. We were totally exhausted. And somebody suggested put it in 3rd gear, because I think she had it in 1st or something. I don't know if you're familiar with this jump starting stuff, or push starting rather. Finally, we gave it one last blast. The car started, and she just kind of drove away. And I started yelling at her, "Hey, do you know who this guy is? It's Mark Daly." Meanwhile, the people that had gathered to watch us started applauding, and it was, I think we were sitting on the road at that point. We were so tired, but it was a fun day, let's put it that way. And we miss good old Mark. He was a good guy. Yet another beach character, Bob Murdoch, who ran Community 55. This guy was way ahead of his time. The cartoon is about something that he implemented when flu was just a flu, right? This was some years ago, and he implemented drive-through flu shot clinics back in 2003. I think he should have gone into politics, but I think I might have been the one who messed that up. I suggest you read the story in the book, because I'm not going to go into it now. And I've included a link from Toronto.com, which is a competing paper, but what the heck, we're all friends in journalism. Well, yes, we are. Okay. So once again, when you get a chance to have a look at the recording, take a look at the story about Bob Murdoch and his long and colorful career. This guy was a marketing genius. He would come up with some crazy stuff that most of the time would work. His bottled water, beach bottled water, it was a good idea. Didn't quite work because of distribution problems, etc. But we miss him too. He's retired and moved away, but he still has ties with the neighborhood, of course. Speaking of Bob, I can't mention Bob's name without talking about Hamper the Reindeer. Another one of his great ideas. This one really worked. Hamper the Reindeer is a big part of Center 55's Share a Christmas. He's their mascot. He and I sat down many times to figure out what an altruistic reindeer that walks around on two legs should look like. And we came up with this guy. He's since been made into a 3-dimensional costume, which appears at events, and he's done a lot of good for people. Certainly, I did a lot of cartoons helping to support the annual campaign. And this particular cartoon was based, I'm not sure if, maybe Bob fed it to me, I'm not sure, but this one is based on that infamous turkey drop episode of WKRP in Cincinnati. Does anybody remember that one? I saw a couple of hands go up. Okay, good. Nobody was injured with this turkey drop, though. Now, I have to admit, I think Al's here, but I'm going to admit it to him anyway. I've used this cartoon a number of times. Every time the house prices go up in Toronto, I've used this cartoon. There are a couple of different iterations of it, but the idea, I think it started out as, sure, it's a dump, but now it's a $250,000. This one is up to 1.5. I wonder how far it's going to go, but it's getting a bit crazy. And speaking of real estate, I did this a long time ago when there may be some real estate agents in the group tonight, but I remember how we used to say that the upper beaches reached as far north as Steele. So I pushed it a little bit further. This is now the upper beach is in the Arctic. And notice, of course, it's black and white. Back then, all we did was black and white. More recently, and I can't remember when, they asked me to do the cartoon in color. Not that I got any more money for that. Okay, so here's one. This is another blast from the past. 2008, when the TDSB they said they needed to close the pools due to lack of funding from the feds and municipal government. Provincial and municipal. The feds don't get involved in that, as far as I know. So I thought, okay, well, I'd like to see the pools open, and I did this kind of preachy cartoon showing the kid who's still on the swim team, and he's in great health, looking good, and of course, the kid who's gone to the pool hall instead of the pool, he's overweight, he's smoking, hanging out with bad people. And I don't know, I like to think that even though it was a small voice, it had some effect. And bottom line is they did not close the Malvern pool. Ah, yes, the Leafs. I know there are some Leafs fans here. I am still a Leafs fan. Dyed in the wool, bleeding blue Leafs fan am I. However, I never miss a chance to take a shot at them. So I decided to use Munch's painting, The Scream, and my apologies to Mr. Munch, because it's, well, frankly, I think it's genius, but I don't mean to insult the original artist. I also like the fact that it, if you pronounce it correctly, it rhymes with punch, as in punch Imlach. But that's a little side joke that I enjoy. And I had to add this. Doctors warn that Leafs are a leading cause of high blood pressure, stress, and erectile dysfunction. And I think there's some truth to that. Now, I'm always going to be a Leafs fan, but at the moment I have a little feud going with the new or the most recent ownership. I will discuss that at a later date. I'm not free to discuss that now, but if you want to talk about it, let's talk. Golf or gardening. As a very bad golfer, I haven't been faced with this particular situation, but I can see it happening. Wanting to get on the golf course and find your golf bag full of gardening tools. No. But this is a tribute to Dentonia, where I've spent many an hour looking for my ball. It's always been a favorite course for local duffers, and you get a chance to actually hit the ball up Victoria Park Avenue. I've done it a couple of times, not deliberately, okay? I remember a kid, this was years ago, the kid must have been, I don't know, 7, 10. He used to sell cold drinks over the fence on really hot days at highly inflated prices. And I think he must be doing very well now. He's probably a multi-millionaire, if not a billionaire. And I also remember a fox that used to sleep in the sun at the 11th tee, always seemed to be there when I arrived. And I'm pretty sure that he was there just to laugh at my shot as it went into the woods or the creek there. Notice, I don't know if you noticed the lower beach logger in the bottom left corner there. And this was my attempt at caricaturing John Tory, but the headline was new raccoon-proof green bins may not be as pest-proof as first thought. So I've got a raccoon with a rocket-propelled grenade and a rat with a drill. And this cartoon, they keep bringing this up over and over, and I'm wondering when is it going to happen? But this, I heard this more recently. This was a much older cartoon, but it just keeps resurfacing. The situation is the city of Toronto is trying to collect millions of dollars worth of unpaid traffic fines. And I think Doug Ford made it more difficult because he's, we now get free stickers. So that was their, I guess, nowadays it's going to have to be the license renewal where they try to get the tickets, but they actually hired a collection agency. And I thought, why not show, a couple of gangsters trying to collect? I thought that was quite funny. I may be wrong. And I just threw this in. This is not in the book, but it was one of my faves, Aging Hippies. I did this quite a few years ago, but now that I look at it, it's actually looking a lot like some of my friends and myself. So it's scaring me a bit. And part of this, of course, if you know my cartoons, I can't resist puns and plays on words. That kind of low humor. Of course, I would always make an effort to support any events in the beaches area, in and around the beaches. So I'll go through this relatively quickly. Of course, the Country Music Festival, presented by the Beaches Lions. The Beaches Lions does a lot for this neighborhood. That was on Canada Day. Of course, with COVID-19 over the past couple of summers, it's really put a damper on things. The war canoe race at the Balmy Beach Club, at the regatta, a lot of fun there. The rugby volleyball, also at the Balmy Beach Club. The charity hot tub party, that's part of beach history now, but at one point it was actually took place at the Greenwood Racetrack. Of course, the Beaches Jazz Festival, or simply strolling on the boardwalk or rollerblading. Now, the Ludi Lifeguard Station here has a story of its own. A bunch of us got together in a committee when it was really run down. And once again, I can't remember the exact date, but Gene DeMagala was a big part of it. Tom Jakubek, Bob Murdoch, what's his name? Damn. Excuse me. My throat's getting a little dry here. Glenn Cochran, that's the name I'm trying to think of. How could I forget? Glenn is a guy that, I really wanted to put him in my book, but you know what? I could not find the cartoons that I'd done of Glenn. It was very disappointing because he was a big part of doing the cartoons and encouraging me to actually self-publish, and so forth. So he's a guy that I wanted to thank. Of course, he's passed, but I wanted to give him a mention here as well. But we got together, and because it was in such bad condition, we raised a whole lot of money, and the city chipped in a chunk of it, and we fixed it up. And it's such an iconic beach landmark that it would have been a shame to have torn it down, and that's exactly what they were talking about. And that seagull, I actually did a 3D model of it, and I call this guy Flying Officer Albert Ross, as in albatross. Or is it Zeke Gull? Maybe there's more than one gull. Oh yeah, this one got me in a lot of trouble. Does anybody remember this one? Rob Ford, a guy that was Toronto's bad boy, and Justin Bieber, another bad boy. were in town the same weekend. And I decided, okay, I'm going to call them Canada's Dynamic Duo, except I should have checked the Urban Dictionary before I used the word Batty Man and Beaver Boy. I didn't want to call him Fat Man. That would have been mean. So I thought, I'll use the old vernacular Batty, which means, a little crazy. When it was published, our Jamaican Canadian friends and readers mentioned that the term batty means homosexual, a gay man. I had no idea. So the paper literally got hundreds of calls that day. And I apologize. Does anybody remember this was an early cartoon. You may remember something called the urban wilderness movement. Does anybody recall this? Where the idea was to let your garden grow naturally, to give cover and food to butterflies, bees, you name it. So I was well ahead of my time at this point. I generally let whatever yard I happen to have go. And we had raccoons. I didn't see any deer, but you'll notice in the cartoon that I've included a number of cool little characters. There is a bear in there, but you see few bear in the beaches or the beach. And of course, here's the cartoon that was on the poster. This marked the summer of 17, which was extremely damp, lots of flooding. I was a member down at the Silver Birch boathouse, and it kept a kayak there, and we could not get down there. I mean, it was flooded. So here we have this guy in a Speedo walking the boardwalk. And of course, there's a smallmouth bass, or maybe it's a largemouth, I'm not sure. You heard me mention Larry Hayes. He was indeed a legend. Some say a legend in his old mine. But he was the guy that was responsible for the hot tub parties. And he raised money for various charities. He somehow got all kinds of celebrities and politicians in his hot tub. Lots of photo ops. Quite the character. I have to tell you the story about at his funeral. Terrific guy. I liked him a lot. The stories that were told at his funeral literally had us rolling in the aisles. It was people. I think people were crying in both sadness and laughter, but I don't think the priest understood that, because he, at the end of one of the stories, he looked at us all and just put us down like the headmaster would to a group of schoolboys. And not that it was all boys, but he said, I see a lot of laughter here, but I don't see a lot of tears. And man, did we ever feel chastised. But I think the laughter was just a part of how much we loved the guy. And quite a stress release as well, I must say. This actually happened down at the Ashbridges Bay boat launch. Somebody actually did drive their car into the water. I'm not sure how deliberate it was, but I made sure that I added a little guy off in the top left there. And the premise was, you'll get the premise if I read the caption. Never mind what that guy told you. This is not the exit from the Ashbridges Bay Park. And even though I'm terrible at the technology, I try to keep up with it, or did when I was teaching. And once again, another play on words. Hey, the server is down. And she's tripped over his mouse cable. In the internet cafe, which was a thing. Now this is in the book as well, but you guys, I'm sure, remember during the Pan Am Games, all the HOV lanes. And it was once again about the same time or thereafter that Trudeau's campaign platform of legalizing marijuana was around. So this didn't take me. I mean, this was just a scribble basically. I just thought, why not show a couple of aging hippies in their Volkswagen van, telling the cop that they are high occupants, and hence can legally use the high occupants lane. I know it's terrible, but funny. Now, I wanted to also mention the fact that being in the Beach Metro News was instrumental. It was a huge help in getting me into other papers and helping me make a career as a freelancer. I hit a gold mine basically because it was my wife who suggested that I go approach the Ward 9 News, as it was then called. I had been fired from my job at a downtown, it was actually in Yorkville, a graphics studio. They actually did color correction for TV commercials. But they also did catalogs, and they had me doing paste up in a lighting catalog, which basically was burning my brain out. It was so boring. It was ridiculous. So I eventually got fired and rightly so. Well, first of all, I was terrible at paste up. Secondly, I had the misfortune to draw a little tiny caricature of my boss. It was about an inch and a half on the corner of the board that covered my drawing table. And I just happened to capture him perfectly. It wasn't an accurate portrait by any means, but a true caricature where it basically just got him. And this was right after he chewed me out for the umpteenth time about putting the wrong exit light over the wrong model number on a huge sheet of paper that we used to paste these little objects on. Nowadays, it's all done by computer, of course, but this was little tiny bits of paper that we had to glue and stick on. It drove me nuts. Anyway, a lovely coworker. In fact, I'm forever in her debt. She saw the little caricature, cut it out carefully, went down to the camera room. Back then we had camera rooms because there were no computers. She blew this thing up so it was it was like, let's just say it was life size. She blew it up to about 5 or 6 feet tall, and she taped it onto the front door of the building. And then when my boss, Al, came in, he raged for a good half an hour, slammed the door as hard as he could, went into his partner's office and demanded that I be fired. I don't blame him for this. I think in the long term, they did me a favor. I was forced into freelancing, something that a lot of people told young people like me that you couldn't do, but it was perfectly viable. My wife, Debbie, as I was lying there depressed, suggested I go to the local paper and suggest to them that I do a little editorial cartoon and just see if the ideas lasted. And lo and behold, they did. What happened was people from the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, various other publications, TV Ontario, they saw my work. There's a heck of a lot of creative people living in the beach. Next thing you know, I was getting calls, and at the same time I was sending out flyers and making cold calls, which to someone with no experience at doing that is very scary. Eventually, I built a clientele and was able to make a living as a freelance artist. Now, these pieces here were both from the Toronto Star series. I did a field guide to Torontonians with a little map. It was sort of like on the lines of Roger Tory Peterson. And I did that for an entire summer. Got into trouble over a few of them. As I said, various media people lived in the beaches. Dennis Morgan, the late great Dennis Morgan, who was the special sections editor at the Wheel, he was at the Wheel, truly, at the Star. He had seen my work, being a denizen of the beach. So he gave me a call and offered me the opportunity to at least try out to do a cartoon for the Wheel section. He was one of these real old school newspapermen from Great Britain. I believe he was from London. But I had worked for Wheels for a good 15 years. Now, this one's got a bit of a story to it. This was also a Wheels cartoon. And it got an unexpected fan letter. And let me just read the caption. Okay, here's the deal. I put the toilet seat down for you, and you put the car seat back for me. And apparently, I didn't know this at the time, but this was an ongoing discussion with Ann Landers. So a bunch of her readers, and she was with the Chicago Tribune syndicate, a bunch of her readers actually sent copies of the cartoon, and she sent me a fan letter. I thought this was brilliant. I loved it. Good old Ann Landers. I believe her real name is Epi Lederer. And this is one of many Starship pages I did. Starship is the kids page in the Toronto Star, just for kids, as it says there. This was one of my few somewhat realistic attempts at. Usually, I did a cartoony style. This was a little bit more realistic. Obviously about toads, and the fellow who ran the Starship section is a guy by the name of John Robinson, longtime editor of Starship. Unfortunately, the Star elected to kill the section a few years back. Our question was, so where are you going to get your readers from? Nevertheless, he'd seen my work in Wheels and in the Beach Metro News, and it turns out he lived one street over. So we went for numerous beers at various places in the beach and up the street. Occasions is one of them. Now, this cartoon is a part of a little series that will circle us back to a little bit of beach history. Back in the day, this is one of my earlier cartoons. I wish I had the date on it, but it had to be in the 80s. Sunday racing, when the track was still there, long before the development, Sunday racing was an issue. So I decided, why not show a church scene where the dad has passed on a tip to the kid. And he says, my dad says if you were smart, you'd run over to Greenwood and put the whole bundle on Lucky Halo in the 5th. Now, what's funny about this is that I actually got the racing form and looked up an appropriate horse's name, and there indeed was a Lucky Halo in the 5th race on that Sunday at Greenwood. And of course, another racing cartoon. They were complaining that the people that lived very close to the track complained a lot, and I don't blame them at all, that people were throwing trash. Their track goers were walking down their driveways and peeing in their backyards and stuff. So I did a cartoon of a horse actually eating the flowers from somebody's garden, which I thought was funny. And this one is a combination of multiple ideas here. And it also leads up to a little bit of the history that I'm going to show you. Lawn bowling and baseball, both traditions in the beaches. We have a couple of highly esteemed lawn bowling clubs, Balmy Beach and Q Beach. They've been around since the mid to late 1890s. And initially, I don't know how the idea came about, other than the fact that I'd read a report that somebody, a doctor, an organization, a sports organization, was trying to determine the effect of concussions on lawn bowlers. And I don't know if they're a test group or what, but immediately I got the idea of all these lawn bowlers knocking heads on the tightly cropped bowling greens. And I immediately realized, oh my gosh, there's no way I can do that. I can't show people tackling each other. And then I had a conversation with my editor, Al Shackleton, in the old Kew Gardens ball diamond, or near there. We were actually doing a CBC interview for the beginning of the Beach Metro News 50th year. And we started talking about how we'd both been down there and seen huge crowds of people watching softball, fastball, you name it. So that's where I got the idea to combine the two, lawn bowling. This is good old Rodney here, bringing the heat on the lawn bowling field. The pitch, let's call it a pitch. I forget what you call it. And I happen to find a very cool article, once again, accessible to you if you have access to the recording, about EastEnders returning to their glory days of baseball. So that combines a whole bunch of different concepts, which I know confuses people, but what the hell, that's what I do. And this brings me back to a baseball player. And this baseball player happened to be my grandfather, Jack Brennan. Now, years ago, I asked Gene DeMagala, where do I go to get information? I wanted to research this guy's baseball career. And he gave me some very excellent tips. And this was before the internet. I found when the internet came into being, I found it a heck of a lot easier to find information. Now, the fellow on the right is Jack Brennan's little brother, Albert. They called him Abby. And he was also a baseball player. This was from the Toronto Telegram. Whoops, we did it again, didn't we? Toronto Telegram. And in the article, it's mentioned, unfortunately, he was shot by a sniper in World War I, shot and killed, but he was an up-and-coming baseball player. They lived at 559 Jones Avenue, and I've got a picture of the house as it stands today. Various leagues, and it's mentioned here. This ties up a few of my clues that I'd researched earlier based on Gene's tips and the internet, etc. But I know that my grandfather had played in the Pacific Coast League and other leagues. It doesn't mention the fact that he also played for the Toronto Maple Leaf Baseball Club. And they, excuse me, they actually won the championship in 1902. Here he is, middle row. He was all of 16 and a half years old, and he was playing on a pro team. Strangely enough, myself and my brothers never got into baseball. I wish I'd known more about the history, because we all have cannons for arms. We played football. We could throw the ball. I could throw the ball 60, 70 yards, and I wondered, where the hell does this come from? And what's very interesting, if you go back, I happen to also find the Army records for my great uncle Albert. And look, I don't know if you can see it there clearly, but look what he puts in. What is his answer to what is your trade or calling? Ball player. I mean, that's dedication. Here's a picture of the house, 559 Jones Avenue. Apparently, family history says that my grandfather bought it for his mother, Mary Brennan, with the earnings from his baseball career. And then he bought this place. I don't know if you recognize the building, but this is the Selby Hotel. He was a part owner in the Selby with his brother-in-law, Jackie Heineman. And from what I can reap from the research, it was one of the first sports bars. My grandfather was big into horse racing. He hung around the back stretch at Greenwood quite a bit, knew a lot of athletes, players, punters, if you will, and ran this as a sports bar. My dad actually worked there part-time. And that's basically the entire circle. Now, what I want to do very quickly is tell you where you can buy my book. Yes, I'm hustling it shamelessly now. Option one, if you'd like to support the Beach Metro News, you can buy it at their offices at 2196 Gerrard Street East. I supplied them with 100 books at below my cost. I thought it was at my cost, but my math is not good. Also, Justin had to take his percentage. All profits help the paper. Option B, you can certainly support local businesses. It's available at Book City, 1950 Queen Street East. The Coles down there, a little bit further east. And it's also at The Great Escape, 957 Kingston Road. And lastly, if you'd like to, if you want to, you can contact me directly. And this, by the way, except I can't reach it. How do I move this? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Here's my sax playing gull. So I will, if you contact me directly, I will deliver a signed copy to you within the beach and surrounding areas for $30. If that interests you, there's the email address. I keep moving around these pictures of myself and others so I can actually see the screen. Now, finally, is this guy ever going to finish? And now what's it doing, Deb? There we are. Okay. I thought I'd throw these last two cartoons in simply because they reflect sort of what's going on today. I did this cartoon years ago, but all I have to do is add a couple of things to it. So we got this typical beach bar, which could be the feathers. Oh, man. Probably is the feathers. Okay. And one of those t-shirts that says, I survived swine flu, bird flu, West Nile, listeria, Lyme disease, market crash, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We could easily add COVID-19, Zika virus, et cetera. But does Harry look worried? No, he's not. So we can carry on, not worry too much. Maybe worry about this a little bit. But this may alleviate your worry because back in 1982, the beach declared itself a nuclear weapons-free zone. And by the way, I found a heck of a lot of information about our lovely neighborhood on Wikipedia. Some of it is possibly accurate. In fact, I found that Miley Cyrus lived here for 4 years. Who knew? And that, folks, is Life's the Beach, and it certainly has been to me for over 40 years, and I love this neighborhood. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. Oh. There we are.
Yes, there we are. And I'm just going to try and get my slides here. So right now I have Bill's desktop. So
What do I have to do here? Glenn's got my desktop here, Deb.
yeah,
Okay, sorry. What do we need to do?
I don't know.
Pin him.
Unpin him. What does that mean?
We're gonna unpin you, remove pin.
Oh, there we are. Okay,
And then
good.
flash.
There's Glenn. Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for all the tech support from my good wife, Debbie.
yeah.
I'd be totally lost.
Well, I would, I don't have my slide up yet, but I would like to thank Bill for a great presentation. I know even more about you than I did. And but additionally, I should thank our co-host, Jonathan Bradshaw, somewhere in the background there, making sure everything is working, almost everything that is. And we should thank Debbie Suddick, who was behind Bill in the shadows. There you are, just magically appeared. I would also like to mention that we're going to have with time permitting, we're going to have a question and answer session, and we'll probably get to a few questions, but most of what I've seen so far are comments. And I'll read through a few of those, and then if there's any questions, Bill might be able to answer them. We'll try and get through as many as we can in the time that we have, because presentation went on quite a while, but you had a lot of great stuff for us to all look at. If you do want to ask a question or make a comment, there's a chat box that you can write something in, and I will pass it on to Bill. But we have more of these presentations coming up, but I don't have a date at the moment, but you will be notified either through our website or directly if you're on our mailing list or one of our members. And I do encourage you to become a member of the Beach and East Toronto Historical Society. It's $20 a year. We do have a lot of great things planned, including some walks with Jean DeMagula and other presentations like this one. So I'm just going to check the chat box now and read out a few of these comments. You have a lot of fans, Bill, I must say. Let me just see, move that over a little bit. I would like to get rid of this page that I have in front of me that's, oh, there we go. So Mike Robbins is saying, is there a floating head over you, Bill? Yes, there is, and it looks like your wife. Terry McGillicott is saying, you've got a nice soup strainer, Billiam, and I think that might refer to the same thing. Judith Stamp is saying, it's so great to see you, Deb and Bill. And Mike Robbins is saying, just a ghost in the background now. Yeah, we have that great program that we can use to make the background go all fuzzy. So you don't see the messy room behind you and so forth. Eric Malmston, play some music. I guess that's a comment or maybe a request. Esther is saying Deb is the using coordinator. And Barbara Spurl is just saying hi to everyone. That's great. Mike Robbins is saying hi to Barbara. And Esther is now saying, oh, the music coordinator. So Deb is actually the music coordinator, I believe. And Eric is replying, yes, we can see. Somebody else is saying, yuppers. Oh, and somebody's saying, no cussing. So there's somebody who knows Bill quite well, I guess. And Mike Robbins is also saying a classic, and I will agree with that myself. Birgit is saying hilarious, thanks, needed that, but got to go early and sad to miss the rest. Now, we have recorded the program, and the next step will be to edit the program and get it on our website. That usually takes a few days, maybe a week or so. But if you come back to our website in say a week or so, you should be able to check and relive this program. But also I noticed a few people that were hoping to watch this program and were unable to do it for prior commitments. So if you have any friends who would like to check out Bill's cartoons and commentary, that would be an opportunity for them. Breath of fresh air. This is from Barbara Spurl. Congratulations, got to go, but I'll catch the rest on replay. And this looks like a question, just confirming that Beach Metro News support for Save the Malvern Pool really had a great effect back in 2008. Actually, it's a statement. And thanks for that pool or pool hall cartoon, Bill. The same goes for the BMN support for restoring the Malvern Cenotaph. Thanks to everyone. Some applause and another thank you and congratulations, Bill. And another one, and a spectacular presentation, Bill. I really enjoyed it. That's from Jackie Bleeker. And John Ellis, who is president and/or vice president of our society. It's great to hear from John. And I have enjoyed your great contributions to Beach Metro News and the beach over so many years. Yeah, John has been here for many years too. And thanks so much, Bill, and thanks to the T-Beths for this stellar presentation. That's from Lou Nettleton. Cynthia and Mark Bichette, such impressive work. We loved it. Congratulations. And somebody's saying, that was amazing, exclamation mark, laughing my ass off. So much for the cussing. And then Jan's iPhone is saying, excellent presentation. And she bought 5 books, excited to share. There you go. Judah Stamp saying, fantastic, Bill. Thank you. Do give me a call. Read a family who bought my house. So they have some inside story. And, if you want to comment on any of these, Bill, you could turn yourself back on, or maybe Jonathan would need to unmute you. There's a mute button. Actually,
we can, we just learned how to, well, she knows how to unmute.
Yeah.
But, thank you so much for all the nice applause, et cetera, et cetera. The question about who does my makeup. I do it myself, okay?
Okay.
Usually involves beer.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, thanks for all the nice comments. This is great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of great comments here. So,
but Glenn,
yes,
we do have a raised hand from Ted. It's
okay.
Ted's iPad, so I'm not sure if that's a question, but there is a raised hand.
Could
there.
be.
Do you want to?
I can ask him to unmute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll answer most questions.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we're hearing you, Ted.
Geez, Bill, you actually look pretty good. Deb must have did the makeup, eh?
Is this Ted Mitchener or?
Yes, it is. Yes. You don't have to pardon me. I'm up pretty late,
Well,
I'm usually in bed 2
Ted
hours
is
before this.
even though he's a really ancient guy, and I'm so young.
I'm staying up so
I'm
late.
kidding. We're both getting closer in age. That's the thing. Now, Ted and his wife Pat were important mentors in my life. He was a
God,
cartoonist, Illustrator. So was Pat. Living in Toronto, man, they were amazing talents. And he was my instructor at Sheridan College, and I learned a heck of a lot. I learned, in fact, that I could actually make a living as a illustrator. I've been told by so many people that, are you kidding? You're getting into art? What the heck's wrong with you? Are you nuts? Become an accountant, for God's sake, or something useful. Join the city. Work till you die. But Ted and his wife made a great living. They owned a home in Toronto. They did very well, and I was inspired by them and taught by them. I learned a lot.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. I've always admired your work.
Well,
Did you
thank
hear
you,
me?
sir.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
I've
Yes.
never, this is my second time on Zoom, so I'm not sure if you're hearing me or not.
I am hearing, yes, by all means.
Well, thanks for the comments. I've always admired your work muchly,
thanks.
muchly.
This is my second time on Zoom too. No,
You
I'm
must get
kidding.
out here and have a burger.
Yeah, that would be
know.
good.
We have a restaurant, as you know.
Yes, Ted has a restaurant out in New Brunswick.
Just as a backup, just in case the artwork doesn't pan off. It's
the
only been
Gables
70
restaurant.
Yes, it's only been a couple, 70 years, I think. So there you go. Well, I'm glad I saw your presentation. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And hi
Good to hear from you.
and hi to the backup there. Hi, Deb.
I fortunately did have some backup, or I'd be in big trouble.
I'll let you go. How do I do this now?
Sign out,
You go to the little red button that says leave, I think.
bottom right. Or turn your computer off.
Or just walk away from the iPad. Just put it under a pillow and smother it.
Oh, that's great. Look at Eva, she's cracking.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's a blast from the past. Good old Ted, man.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, there was a few more comments, but I don't think there's any more questions. Just a second. Somebody saying Roy Condi fed me daylilies in his backyard once upon a time. John,
I never did.
John W.
Who the heck? Oh,
Did I put them in the salad?
no, it wasn't us.
I thought he was referring to the horse on the racetrack.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, Roy Condi used to live in the beaches as well with his wife Margaret.
Uh-huh. So, and then John Hope is saying, thanks so much for a great, and then maybe he didn't finish the sentence here, but I'm assuming a great presentation. And
Well, thank you very much.
we have another great talk, and then a great presentation from Carol and John. And Eric Malmston has a question.
Certainly.
His question is, any interest in making an animation show?
Well, as a matter of fact, the animation that I showed there was created by my good friend Mike Robbins, and we've been talking about putting together a project, an animation project. Well, we've been talking about it for years. Now that we're both retired, yes, I would love to do something. Mike has been working on his film for, I don't know, about 100 years now. So I think it's time we got it finished. And maybe I can help. I don't know. He's the animator, but I'm learning. The answer is unequivocal, yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. And a couple more. Thank you for the great presentation. And then somebody is saying, Judith Stamp, Bill, my son, Jos, J-O-S,
Yep.
in Vancouver, is director of animation.
Yes.
Doesn't know the name of the company, but yeah, we know a bunch of animation studios out west in Vancouver and quite a few people working out there. I must also disclose that I've been involved in animation to a certain extent, and I've taught a fair bit. That's where I know Bill from, at Seneca. And so, yeah, we could probably get a lot of people together and collaborate on something.
Oh, absolutely. I know Joss, we won't hold it against him, but Joss went to Sheridan. Well, Glenn, Judith, Glenn actually taught at Sheridan as well. So,
Probably his instructor.
you know, it's all good. We get along very well with the other animation schools, and hardly ever any fights break out. There are more fights between the cartoonists and the fine artists, frankly.
Mhm.
And Glenn is a tremendous illustrator and painter. You should see his paintings if you haven't already. He's a great teacher, wonderful guy, well respected. I tried to talk him out of retiring, but he wouldn't listen. And then I retired. He tried to talk me out of it. I wouldn't listen. And it just went on and on from there
So
because
here
we
we
kept
are.
forgetting. We kept forgetting we were retired.
Oh, you never really retire, let's face it.
No, that's true.
And if you do, there's always housework.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to do housework. What is that cat doing beside
There's
me?
that famous cat.
He's
Oh,
all
look.
blurry.
Oh, anybody else have a cat? We can,
Tell him it's not our cat.
It's not our cat. He drops by for snacks and beers and watches TVs with.
Hangs out in my fitness program.
Yeah, he's quite a guy. We all like him. I don't know.
oh, here we have another one. We could have a whole Zoom with everybody and their cats. So maybe that's a good idea. I don't know how it fits with the Historical Society, but it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's see.
Cat Zoom, Zoom for cats.
Yeah.
I'll suggest it to my superiors. See what
Yes,
comes of it.
the cats.
Yeah. Anyway, oh yeah, now we have Meow, somebody.
Well, that's Mike Robbins, the animator. He animated that gull, and we
Oh, yeah.
decided to pick the Pink Panther theme. I actually tried to get some of the Seneca music students to come up with a little theme, but
They cost too much.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, I think we're probably going overtime now, and the union will be on our case if we don't
that's true.
pack it up in a short while. So, Bill, I really thank you for your great show, great presentation. I think you're going to have to do another run of your books because you're going to have a lot of customers, and especially with that great deal where you're going to deliver them like those food delivery guys. You on a bicycle with a little square
call it-
hamper?
Luber.
Yeah.
Glenn, I want to thank you about for emceeing this. You've done a great job
Yeah, no,
and helped me through it, and Jonathan as well. We needed him here as well as Deb, as our tech people, and he helped us a lot. But thank you so much for asking me to do this. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, well,
I'm
lots
going to
of
join too.
lots of thank yous. Yeah, lots of thank yous. And we might as well thank everybody who attended tonight because
Oh, absolutely.
we had a very nice attendance, well over 50 people. And our limit is 100. So I was hoping we wouldn't get to 99 in the first 2 minutes, but that's still a very good turnout. And I'm sure more people will come and check out the recording once we get it put up on our website. And thanks everybody for your interest in art, cartoons, beach history, and the neighborhood. And I think we'll just we'll have to call it a night before I ramble on any longer. And
Well, thanks everybody.
yeah, and Bill will make a date for some beer
Absolutely.
with some of the other characters in the neighborhood.
Sounds good. That sounds
Yeah.
great. Fantastic.
So we'll be in touch. And like I say, if you have any interest in our activities in the Beach Historical Society, please visit our website. And we're always looking for comments and suggestions, and anybody who's interested in getting involved, we'll be happy to have you. And we will see you next time. Probably sometime in next month, we'll have another presentation. to be
Excellent.
announced.
I'm joining.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and this is the final goodbye. And
Thanks, everybody.
we'll see everybody another time. Thank you very much.